Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MLB The Show franchise stream series. This is Mike Lowe. You can find me on Twitter at MikeLowe47. And of course, this is the first off-season episode here after completing all 162 games of a 2020 regular season that saw the Tigers finish a handful of games below 500. I forget our exact record, maybe 7 or 8 games below 500. And here we are in the off season. There have been some things that have happened already. You can see we're on November 2nd, which is right where I wanted to be for this particular episode. So just going to kind of give you a lay of the land. Again, I'm going to assume that you've seen some of the games or you're at least up on this, so I'm not going to go through everything in detail. But as we go through the off season here and prepare for next year's MLB The Show, that's what we'll be doing here in these next few episodes. Is just really talking through off season, talking through strategy. And, there are some limits to this game. This is not out of the park baseball where you get far, far, far more detail and realism. But nonetheless, it's an entertaining off season. I think it's still worth taking some time to slow down and really consider your strategy and kind of how things are going to lay out for you. Earlier, a few weeks ago, actually, I think now I tweeted out a screenshot, or maybe it was a week ago, just looking at some preliminary free agents, which we will talk about here. For the Tigers, I've made some adjustments since that last tweet, and we will discuss that whole strategy moving forward. You can ignore Jeimer Candelario because he's kind of a filler spot for a potential free agent move I'm looking to make, but I'm still going to want him on the team here. I'm just not quite sure, but he's just kind of in there because I can't send him down to AAA right now because he's arbitration eligible player, and they won't let me send him down to the minors just to kind of clear out space. Nonetheless, but I expect him to be on the MLB team. But the rest of this lineup is kind of what I'm thinking for next year. And again, a lot of familiar names that we made some moves earlier in this offseason. So, or I should say during the season, which helped us with this particular offseason. Not everything needs to be done necessarily in an offseason, and sometimes your best move is the move that you do not make, which we will talk about. So, of course, Victor Caratini will be back at catcher for the Tigers. I'm planning to move Jonathan Schoop to third base. I think that's a big change for that. He's a pretty good defender, but I think he's going to be almost an elite defender as a third baseman potentially. And that allows us to kind of shore up the middle infield, which again, we'll be taking a look at here at second base. Christian Stewart, although he's only a 70 overall, he's a really, really good platoon candidate. Really just kind of the perfect guy for that on the cheap. And so we will be putting him in there. I'm not crazy about him being a cleanup hitter. I don't know if he's going to be able to progress. Continue to progress, but he had a pretty decent year, at least the second half. And unfortunately, as I've mentioned before, you don't get split stats in this game. But he finished the season with a 7.74 OPS, a big time slugging bat, and he was terrible the first month, if not two. So that gives me a lot of promise. He still hit 24 home runs. So it's kind of a thing. It might not seem when you see a guy with a 217 average in your cleanup spot, but there's a little bit more to that. So Nico Goodrum, again, kind of a feast or famine guy against righties, but he's going to be our shortstop, and batting fifth is what we're thinking. Delino DeShields Jr., I really like in center field for his speed. I like to put my best base runner, best base stealer at the 6 hole, because a lot of times you have guys who are more just kind of single hitters back here. I don't really want to risk having a stolen base up here when you can just drive them in with a double or a home run. So Delino DeShields there at center field. Miguel Cabrera moving down the lineup. He is on the trade block. He's a guy I'm considering trading. I know a fun little topic towards the end of the season was his chase for 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. And you can see that he's close. Certainly on the hits, that will happen soon. 13 hits away from 3,000. He needs 12 home runs for 500 in his career. And you can see he's hit 12 in 2019. And for me, in 621 at-bats, he only had 11. So that's no guarantee. It's been a bit of a struggle, but he's still a really good bat against lefties. He's still a good contact guy, and I actually think he'd be a good fit for this 7th hole. Can hit it behind Delino DeShields and so on, not just in the lineup, but also when he's on the base path, try to hit the right field, get him over to third. Perhaps if DeShields is able to steal, drive him in with a single, which Cabrera has been very good at his entire career. Victor Reyes, again, I don't know. Victor Reyes had a really, really nice year for us. I said he would have made the All-Star game for us. 359 on base percentage this year. He was in our leadoff spot most of the year. But I do expect that to regress a little bit, potentially. He does not have great discipline. He doesn't have a ton of power. And truthfully, it was a spot that I'm looking to kind of just bulk up a little bit up at the top of the order. But Victor Reyes, there's a few moving pieces in this lineup for sure. Victor Reyes is definitely one of them. Joe Adell is also one of them. He struggled a little bit since we picked him up from the Angels, but he's still the 748 OPS, 300 at bats. I mean, if you put that out, you kind of double that. He's close to hitting 25 home runs as a rookie. So we expect a lot of things. Could Joe Adell eventually be up in this 3-4 spot? Absolutely. Is he ready just yet? No, but it could honestly be this year. And so, as I mentioned, we have some moving parts, right? Jamer Candelario can come in and play third base. Scope could go back to second, even shortstop. So there's definitely some guys we can rotate around here. I think the same thing with the bench. Harold Castro is really close to earning a starting spot, and I think if he had better fielding and reaction, he would probably be our starting second baseman. But I just can't have a middle infielder with that low of fielding and reaction. So to me, he's a really, really nice pinch hitter, a guy who can come in and sub in day games. The challenge with that is he expects to platoon, which I just don't have for him just yet. So as of now, I'm not expecting it. But you can see here, even though he was a really hot player for us for big parts of the year, he finished with an OPS of 724. It's just not something I really want to just set up and have as a starting player in the lineup, right? So again, moving parts. Eric Haas is not one of those moving parts. He is a backup catcher for us. I thought about even signing another catcher, but really trying to stick to keeping player happiness, and Caratini is expecting to play every day. So Haas is here, or Hayes, however you say his name. He is a defensive catcher through and through. He's a guy who's going to play on Sundays and Thursdays probably, and just kind of block pitches and so on. That's his job. So we have some other guys that can rotate in, right? Be potential. Travis Demeritte can play in the outfield. He can play a little bit in the infield. He's a potential option at second base as well, although probably more at third base and in the outfield. Very, very underwhelming bat last year. Actually regressed for me, and just about the same amount of at bats as he had in 2019. And so, but again, he's a guy in the mix. I don't want to bury guys like this too far down the depth chart. I'm not looking to start Travis Demeritte, but I don't want him necessarily pushed out to AAA or anything like that. So again, you have to kind of balance, signing big time free agents and throwing a bunch of money around. That's one strategy, but when you have guys who still have deep potential, he's 26 years old, he could start to improve, and you can see his ratings there, right? You can see a lot of pluses there. He is improving. So just as Joe Adell, we have some depth there. Daniel Pinheiro, not quite the potential, but I like his bat. He will play against lefties, which is a nice upgrade for him because he's only expecting to be a depth player, I should say. And so, again, a guy that could play first base, I mean, that's first base, left field is probably about the only spot I would consider for Daniel Pinheiro. But again, a lot of moving pieces that we can kind of slide around here, not just in the lineup, but again, subbing guys out. DeShields isn't a great hitter against lefties. He's a pretty good bunter. So again, just depending on some different matchups, maybe Demeritte comes in that day, maybe Castro comes in and plays left field, and Adell moves to center field. There's a lot of interchangeability in this lineup, which I like, because a lot of these players are still very, very cheap. So we got 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, this right here is what we'd go with. If we sign any hitters, we'd have to be sending somebody down. And again, would that be a Travis Demeritte? Would it be Pinheiro? It's honestly hard to say. Most likely, because I really don't want to send any of these guys down, it would probably free up a trade. Whether that's Candelario or Demeritte would probably be the two most likely candidates to be moved, maybe Victor Reyes. So, again, just something to think about. As we switch over to the left-handed lineup, again, Candelario just kind of a stand-in for a guy I'm considering signing. But DeShields moves up. DeShields and Cabrera both move up in the lineup. Scope moves into a more important spot, in my opinion, from 3 to 4. 3 to 4. Pinheiro comes in at the 5 spot, which is maybe asking a lot of him. He's only got 55 power against lefties, but we just don't have a ton of power. Could Joe Adell easily bump into that spot very, very soon? Yeah, I mean, for sure. And truthfully, we'd probably just do that now. I would probably put like Reyes there. So again, you can see there's already some interchangeability here with this lineup as we're looking at it. So a lot of similar guys. Caratini does not hit lefties great, but he still gets on base so well that, I mean, I would even be comfortable putting him up into that 2-hole still or something like that. So off the bench, I think one of the things that we have here is we don't really have a good right-handed bat to come off the bench, but it's pretty rare. I mean, we don't play lefties a whole ton. Typically, you don't. It's not something I want to overspend on or anything like that. And the other thing, too, is, people will say, oh, you got to have that righty bat to pinch hit. You got to have him in there. But, I mean, who needs to be pinch hit for here, right? I mean, if you are pinch hitting a guy in your lefty lineup, you probably have a bad lineup to begin with. I mean, why would you be starting, say like Christian Stewart, like, oh, yeah, you got to have a pinch bat for him. Well, why? Why is he in there to begin with, right? So here we have Cabrera as the DH and first base Pinheiro. So it's not a huge concern I have. And again, I think Demerit would be able to hold down that job potentially. And we'll just kind of see how that goes. So looking at the pitching staff, again, we're pretty much set. I think if we had to start today, this would be your kind of top 5. There is a starting pitcher that I'm pursuing that I'll talk about here momentarily. But these would be the starting 5. You can see making his debut really from day 1, which I'm torn on. But I don't think this guy really does, or this, actually this game does do service time well. So I'm not sure if Skubal would be up on day 1, but we'll have to see. I really don't want to get that started too quickly, his service time there. So, but anyway, Funkhauser, Bo Burrows, also no service time. So these are guys they have some stamina, as you can see if I just kind of click through them here. Of course, Casey Mize pitched a lot with us last year. But there's not a ton of great options here. But I like these guys because they do have stamina. Speaking of starters, you'll see Daniel Norris actually have slotted into the setup spot. As a lefty. He's basically taking the job of Xavier Cedeno. He was our best starter last year, so it's kind of a weird move. But I also just kind of feel that, I really think he just kind of, not that he got lucky. I mean, he still gave up 21 home runs. If we look at his man's metrics, they're not, his fielding independent ERA is not great. His home runs per 9 is not great. His K to walk is good, but his K per 9 is not good. So I think he actually could benefit from being in the bullpen. He's not, with 66 stamina, it's just not really something I want in the starting rotation this year. So what I think it really, really beefs up our bullpen a lot, which is really, really nice. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yeah, you see 13 guys here. Same thing, Spencer Turnbull, taken out of the starting rotation. He started 32 games for us, but just not in love with what he was doing, but still worthy of having on the team for now. And so we kind of have him right now in the long rotation here. Truthfully, he might end up being like a 5th starter to start the season, especially when you have a lot of off days in March and April. And so you can sometimes get away with 4 starting pitchers, and that would buy us a little time for Tarek Skubal to not start his clock just yet, which is very, very important for some of these top prospects. And so continuing really quick to look at another starter that will be in the rotation at some point. It's going to be Matt Manning. But he 100%, I want to make sure that we're waiting at least a month or so before bringing him up. But as I mentioned, we might do the same thing with Tarek Skubal as well, wherever he is. Where did he go? There he is. But he's 24. So again, here's the thing with Tarek Skubal. If you had to go on day 1 with this guy, what's the difference between him and Manning? Well, 2 years is the difference. So you have 6 years of service time with the guy, right? If it starts on opening day, that means after his 6th season, he will be a free agent, not a day sooner, not a day later. And so with a 24-year-old player, that means at the start of his age 31 season, right? So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Sorry, at the start of his age 30 season, he would be hitting free agency. It's not the end of the world. The A potential does have me a little bit worried about it, right? Whereas Matt Manning would be 2 years sooner, so he would be hitting unrestricted free agency at age 28. And again, that's assuming if you don't sign an extension or anything like that. And that is a big difference because you got at least 2 to 3, if not more, years of prime baseball potentially in an A potential guy. So again, just kind of talking through some of that basic strategy. But the bullpen looks similar. Sims is back. Ramirez, I think, will be our second lefty again. Ryan Hendricks came on really, really strong at the end of the year. I could see him making the team. Gerson Moreno, he's probably the odd man out, honestly. I just kind of put him up here because, again, if I had to go with these 13, I mean, he would probably be the 13th pitcher on the team. He was the AAA closer last year. He has no major league experience just yet. He's just a guy. He can throw hard. I probably don't expect him to be on the team full time. So Joe Jimenez did a really nice job. We amazingly did not blow any saves last year between Vizcaino, who we traded, and Joe Jimenez. We had 0 saves. So I'm going to assume that won't be the same thing next year. I mean, that's just it's gonna regress back to the norm. And there's no possible way. And so he has a decent clutch rating, but his home runs per 9 is very, very worrisome. And that's one of the first things that's going to bite your closer. I mean, look at his home runs per 9, not just in the season I played, but in real life. It has been a struggle. So we are pursuing an upgrade at closer. As much as I don't like to spend big money on relief pitchers, I think it's something that's going to benefit this team. It'll probably even allow us to maybe move Joe Jimenez because maybe his value is about as high as it could be right now at age 26. So he is certainly on the block because I like Buck Farmer. He pitched well. But again, maybe Buck Farmer's the guy we move at age 30. So one of these guys would probably end up getting moved if we did sign a closer. So, yeah, what else can I tell you? I mean, if I just look at the AAA roster, other guys in consideration. I had to actually re-sign. Danny Gilbert was one of our draft picks, right? But he was a free agent for some reason. Somehow he just was down there. So I already re-signed him. So he's back in the system, but he probably won't be on our AAA team. Actually, just move him down, actually. But you can just see, I mean, there's some names here. I mean, Willie Castro is a good defender. He's had some major league experience. He played with us last year, but I don't have him making the team right now. Jacoby Jones is probably an odd man out. Actually, I don't even think we offered him an extension through arbitration. Or is it, what is he, renewable? Yeah, arbitration. I don't think we've offered him anything. So, there's some other guys. I mean, Dowell Lugo is a guy I have on the trade block. Frank Schwindel actually has a pretty decent bat, it seems. He's a guy that, maybe could make the team, but I also have up on the trade block for now, just to kind of see what could be what. Some other guys I'm excited about. Let's see. Here's Charles Dawson, of course. No secondary positions, so if you're waiting to see that, the number 1 overall pick in the draft, he sticks with no secondary positions. And I did check other players. They did get secondary positions back, but he was not one of them. So he's a terrible defender. I'm a bit bummed about that, but, that's just how it goes. You can see Danny Gilbert there. And again, another draft pick does have secondary positions. So a bit of a bummer there. I'm really excited about Isaac Paredes. I think he is a guy, again, if we don't sign this middle infielder, could he be a third baseman for us rather soon? I think he definitely could. So if we don't sign this target I have, it's really not the end of the world. By the way, Steve Johnson ranked in the top 100 prospects or whatever it is, 150 or 50, I forget. Steve Joseph, I should say. So he was a draft pick last year for us. So that's exciting. And I think there's only a few guys in the system. Sam Williams, just a free agent I signed, who just had a potential randomly. So he's a lefty reliever. I don't really consider him a top prospect, but of course, Charles Dawson's in there. Matt Manning, of course. So we got a few prospects there. I don't know if they show anybody on the major league roster who would be a top. Yeah, Tarks Google. And you'd think that Casey Mize, although he's got a little major league time under his belt. So salary arbitration, I mean, we have offered a lot. You can see arbitration offered. We offered it to a handful of people, also have offered extensions to most of these guys, hoping that we can avoid arbitration. And the reason you want to avoid arbitration is not terrible. It's literally an arbiter, right? It goes to a court system, basically. It goes to an arbiter who is going to decide. The team presents a salary, the player presents a salary, the arbiter decides which one's fair. So the player's going to get a fair salary. It's nothing to be afraid of. And if anything, I actually don't mind the arbitration process because it locks the player into a one-year deal, where a lot of times players don't want to re-sign a one-year deal. They want a long-term deal. So it's almost like the franchise tag in football. So anyway, but I have also attempted, you can see, just to sign one-year deals where I said, hey, listen, let's just give you what's fair now. Let's not mess around with the arbiter because you never know, and see if we can get these guys on one-year deals because they won't be in our free agent at the end of the year. They have arbitration again next year, as you can see their ARB into the 2022 offseason. So yeah, anyway, these guys were offered Buck Farmer. I did not offer Daniel Bard, so he's not going to be back. I did not offer Zach Godley. So we'll just look at the guys we did. We did offer Joe Jimenez, and again, on the bottom right, you can see there's also a contract offer, so arbitration offered and contract for most of the guys have shown you now. Victor Caratini, same thing. Jamer Candelario, same thing. Nico Goodrum. So a lot of our players, you can see we have a very young team, right? Jacoby Jones, I did not. We're going to let him go. Delino DeShields. That's it. So there's the arbitration overlook. Tendering contracts are for players who are not quite arbitration eligible yet. So if you look at their contract, they have that RNW, which just means renew. You can basically, this game doesn't do it exactly how real life does, but you can essentially renew their contract for, pretty cheap. It's like 80% of their salary last year. So you could technically give the player a 20% demotion based on dollar amount, which is kind of weird, but that's how the game does it. So you can certainly get these guys pretty cheap. And I think for the most part, you can see we've offered most people contracts here. I guess I haven't offered Spencer Turnbull. That's interesting. I thought I did. So I might have to go back and look at that one. But all these guys are Christian Stewart. We didn't. I swear it's like not. Well, either way, they're not going anywhere. So we may have to revisit those guys. And you can see some of these guys are making dirt cheap money here. They're $50,000 a year. So again, just a lot of guys just kind of filling out. There are some guys we're letting go. I swear I need to look at those again. Because there's some guys I'm definitely letting go, but I feel like it did not save accurately. Because I am pretty sure I would have offered Turnbull. Anyway, we'll take a look. So that's that. I guess the moment you've been waiting for is who are the free agent targets of the Tigers? And we have 3. You can see right there. I've narrowed it down to 3. Julio Teheran is going to be, a starting pitcher who can, again, bump either Skubal down in the AAA for a little bit or even one of those lower guys at the bottom of the rotation who just are kind of bodies. And so I think he is going to be a really nice fit. Let's take a closer look at him as I'm talking about him. So Julio Teheran, he has there's no compensation, so I'm not going to lose a draft pick by signing him or anything like that. I love the break. Especially when you're kind of getting guys who are maybe like a budget kind of player, like a 73 overall, you start seeing ratings that are like in the 90s. That's something you can work with, right? That he has a skill. He has a really, really special ability here that we may be able to use to our advantage. So again, break, a really, really big thing if you're reading the modern development analytics and things like this are talking about spin rate on balls and so on. And it's one of the bigger trends in sports the last few years for baseball. And so I'm really excited to see what Julio Teheran can do for the Tigers. We're the only team offering him right now, so I'm expecting him to sign. He's got a nice 5-pitch repertoire. Doesn't throw very hard, but again, he'll have quite a bit of movement on his pitches there. Can still be a little bit wild, can still give up the home run. But he started 24 games for the Angels last year, went 12-4, won a World Series with them. So again, it brings a little bit of leadership and so on, experience, veteranship. And so, I think he's going to be a good signing. He's got a 2-year deal with a mutual option on the second year, so about $3.5 million per. That's to me is just a no-brainer signing. We were looking at Trevor Bauer, who is basically a super, super better version of Julio Teheran. Better stamina. This guy's just a phenomenal pitcher. Excellent break. Again, when we're talking about spin rates and things like this, this guy's kind of the poster child for that kind of modern movement. Trevor Bauer. A lot of players will and team staff and so on will tell you that Trevor Bauer is literally kind of like the godfather of that big movement. And so it's very tempting to go grab a guy like this, but at age 30 to give up a first-round pick for him on a team that, truthfully wasn't very good and may very well not still be good, just didn't seem like it made a lot of sense. And so To me, if we're a player away, let's say we, made it to the World Series last year, or we made it into the championship series or something like this, and boy, we're a Trevor Bauer away from getting it done, then yeah, I'm going to give up the first round pick and sign him. But I think where this team is at, it just didn't make sense. Also, if Trevor Bauer was like 26, I would probably give up the first round pick. But for a 30-year-old, it just didn't make sense. So right now it's the Phillies and Reds kind of fighting over him. And then you saw the next guy we were looking at after. So again, Teheran is a starter. We are looking at Liam Hendricks as a closer. So again, he has no qualifying offers or anything like that. He's a free and clear free agent. We have some competition. The Yankees and Braves are also in on Liam Hendricks. And this guy, I just think is going to be a bona fide closer for us. I think, again, really good break, can throw hard, can strike guys out. He's a night player, which I think is really, really cool. Again, the Tigers play a ton of night games. Also a stopper, so when you think you're the home team, right, and you're losing in the ninth inning, and it's the top of the ninth, you can bring him in still. All right, he's going to hold that. Maybe it's a one-run lead. So I actually really like having that stopper quirk on a closer. So we're pursuing this guy. I've kind of given him what I'm comfortable paying. When I looked at his WAR and just kind of averaged out of, say, just for the lack of a very long story, I typically value WAR, like a one WAR at about $6 million, right? And so over the last few years or so with him, he has come out to, 1.5 WAR. And so for me, it was a $9 million a year offer. And again, it's a 2-year deal. And come to think of it, I think to spice this one up, I'm not going to put the option on this one. I'm pretty confident that we can get this done. So I'm going to go to 2 years. Oops, I'm dating if I want to give him the player option because he'd probably like it more. Let's see what this does first. Does that put me a little bit higher? Not really. I'm going to give him that player option because I don't really care. I mean, I'd love if he stuck around, but so player, 9 a year. That's about the best. Oops. That's about the best offer I can give him. That definitely puts us in the mix there. So anyway, that's who we're looking at for closer, Liam Hendricks. And then at second base, I've had a hard time really trying to decide on DJ LeMahieu. He's 32. This is the guy I have the placeholder with Candelario for in the lineup that we saw at the beginning. He would be our leadoff guy against righties. Great contact, enough power, can still hit some home runs even from the leadoff spot. A really nice clutch rating. He's not very fast, but again, he'd be a 1 or 2, maybe even a 3 hitter in this particular lineup. He kind of had a bit of a down year. I mean, I hate to give $25 million a year to a guy who had a 738 OPS because I just told you why I'm not starting Harold Castro, for instance, and those are very, very similar numbers. But he has the makeup to bounce back, and he's bounced back before in his career, right? You can't really look too closely at his Colorado numbers, but his first year with the Yankees as a right-handed hitter was really, really solid. I mean, he had 26 home runs and so on, and I'm not getting him for home runs per se. I'm getting him to get on base, which even in a down year, he's been able to do. It's got some interesting quirks. I wish the day player was a night player, but it is what it is. But I mean, he's going to be definitely a good player, and again, against lefties, he can be right in the middle of that lineup with the 98. He's kind of like the Miguel Cabrera we had last year. Really, really high contact, but he's probably a better player against lefties than Cabrera, even last year. Would have been for us, even if he had probably reached his potential, which Cabrera struggled a lot last year for us. So LeMahieu is kind of the guy we're throwing money at. I don't know. We're offering him more money, as you can see, than the Yankees. They're offering him about 94 over 4 years. We've gone up to 100. And I've made the 4th year, and this is probably one of the reasons. I believe the 4th year was a mutual option. Because again, he'll be 32, 3, 4, 35. I don't really know if I want to pay a 35-year-old $25 million. If he's playing well, I will, and that's where that option came in. So I kind of draw the line there. It's probably going to cost us signing him, but I'm okay with that. If we don't get DJ LeMahieu, I'm not super concerned. So we're not going after JT Realmuto, even though we have tons of money and he's the best free agent. Because one, Caratini, I'm very, very content with at catcher, and he wants to play every day. So Real Muto would probably be a catcher, and we'd probably move Caratini to, say, first base or even third base, right? He could be the third base option. But I don't think Real Muto is worth the money that he's getting. This guy's going to cost probably 24, 25 million a year. And as we look at his stats, I just don't think he's worth it. If we look at his WAR, so what I'm looking at is his at bats. 200. He's got about 2,900 at bats. Let's just extrapolate that over a career. Even taking some of his lesser years when he first started. I mean, but you can see it's not like he's had some crazy on base before. So we're going to just take his career numbers, which is a 772 career OPS, over about 2,900 at bats. So let's times that by, we'll divide it by 10 and times it by 2, right? So that's going to put him at about 600 at bats, roughly, a little bit below. And so if we do the same thing with WAR, he's got 16.4 WAR. So let's divide it by 10. It's about, 1.7 times it by 2, 3.4. So to me, this guy's worth probably about, 18 or 19, maybe 20 million. He wants 24 to 25. It's just the value's not there. Again, if he was 26, still growing. It's like a Manny Machado situation, sure. But he's 30. And so we are not going to go after him. We're also not going to go after any of the qualified free agents because, again, we would be losing a draft pick. And we're just not in a position to do that. And there's just not really a player that is just, that I feel is going to just suddenly change the outlook. I don't feel it's worth giving up our first-round pick for. Anderson Simmons, of course, was an option, but to me, he kind of had a fluky year. I mean, look at this OPS suddenly out of nowhere. I don't know if I'd expect that to continue, but he's potentially going to get paid like that. He's getting, close to $15 million a year from the Angels, and I would just rather roll with what we have. So that is where we are at. I'm going to give this a quick save. I had offers out on coaching staff. That's something you want to be doing as well. But again, it's actually one of the most tedious things in this game. It's pretty boring. And I don't think we've signed some. So we have Johnny Baldwin, who's our new manager. I can't even see. Yeah, there's not really a profile to see, but you can see he's going to help our clutch. I don't care that he hurts our bunting because I don't bunt. He's going to help with our break, which is awesome. And he's going to help with our catching. So Johnny Baldwin, we let Gardenhire go. Johnny Baldwin will be the new manager. I honestly don't even remember if I hired these other guys. It's been a while. I don't even remember. But the coaching stuff's not really that exciting. Anyway, so let's do this. What I'm thinking is Monday, maybe just sim a week or so, and then I'll probably do like one of these streams. I think what I'll do is I'll sim up to Sunday, and then maybe Sunday I'll start doing these like Sunday night or something like that. And we can just kind of see how it goes. So that's the plan. Let's sim through the day. Now, it's not giving me any kind of notifications. I guess we just have to go here. So did nothing happen that day? Looks like nothing at all. Like literally nothing happened. Or am I just the first team? I saw these earlier. I did sim a day on Sunday just to kind of see how it went. And yeah, there's nothing new here. So, all right, well, easy enough. Let's check and see if we're still like the high bidder and everything. Yeah, it's looking good. Boy, we run the risk of only getting maybe the starting pitcher, but he really likes. So one of the reasons he likes the Yankees offer more, right? He wants team quality to be a contender. You can see on the right-hand side, he's got a red sad face for us. We are not a contender, so that's probably why he will just re-sign with the Yankees. But we'll keep our $25 million in the bank. That's fine. Okay, so I'm pretty bummed about that one. So Liam Hendricks has taken the offer with the Yankees for less money. So there he goes. I'm bummed about that one. I thought that would have been a really, really nice signing for us. So how did he get? I thought it said it was 17 something. Now it says 9.24 million a year. It doesn't make any. Well, they must have like front loaded it. Interesting. All right, well. Okay. Ken Giles re-signs with the Phillies there. And let's see if anything else happened. The Rockies have picked up Mike Zunino. It's a free agent. Ken Giles we know about, and Liam Hendricks. So those seem to be the big ones. Okay, so we're getting some notifications. It's weird. It's not. I must have some notifications turned off because we re-signed Lucas Sims. I mean, the re-signing stuff we don't care too much about unless it's our own team. There's Liam Hendricks. Joe Adell has re-signed. All right, so yeah, nothing too crazy. So I guess we need to re-examine and see if there's another relief pitcher that I would consider. But when we look at the ratings on these guys, it would be there's no way I'm giving up a first-round pick for a relief pitcher. I mean, there's 0% chance. So the only guy I would even consider is Juan Nicasio. But like, is this guy really? And he didn't even pitch last year. He's been pretty bad. He's healthy. That's good. I don't think I would rather just go with Joe Jimenez. I mean, the guy's 33, so yeah, this could be a very uneventful offseason for the Tigers, minus a trade later on. But again, the first week, a lot of action is going to happen in this one. So let's see if there's anything else. I wanted to check one thing just on Teheran's durability before we have any surprises. Ooh, it's not great. But it's a pretty low risk. And even if you did get hurt in the first month, it actually would work out because it would open up the roster spot I want. So, I'm okay with that. He stayed pretty healthy. Let's see what 73, 78. I mean, yeah, a lot of these guys have similar, so it's not like he's terribly unhealthy. All right, well, a few more days here. Okay, LeMahieu's gone as well. Okay. Realmuto signs with the Twins. A little surprising. Diamondbacks, Wilson Ramos. But again, you have to be okay with this. Again, sometimes, I mean, it's a lot of money. So a few players resigned. Daniel Pinheiro will be on our major league roster making $50,000 a year. This game's very goofy sometimes. White Sox want to offer us a trade. They already ooh, this is an interesting option. They offered me this trade earlier. Not this one. They offered it for somebody else. $46 saves last year. It would free up Cabrera's contract. So I know that offer's out here. Actually, I actually do kind of like this trade. I mean, obviously, to get rid of that contract would be wonderful. I'm really surprised they offered that trade, but like, who did they have at first base? Abreu. Why? I guess he'd be their DH. It's very interesting. I'm gonna keep this in mind, and that might be where we pick up the next sim, or the stream from, I should say. Okay. Just seeing if anybody else. It's a pretty weak free. I mean, a lot of players re-signed with their teams already, so. Very quiet off-season. Actually, wasn't this the same? No. Okay, Castro's back. So you can see we're re-signing a bunch of guys. That's no surprise there. Those guys were still tied to the organization, so they wouldn't have been able to go anywhere. Sure, Yankees. Zach Britton for Dowell Lugo. So Dowell Lugo is a guy, I like Dowell Lugo. He actually played really well for us. On base with 372 in very limited time, 38 at bats. But to me, he's like this weird, he's a weird player, right? Like, I wish he was a primary third baseman because I think he'd have a great arm for it. He's a primary second baseman. And obviously his fielding reaction kind of leave a lot to be desired there. So he's just not a guy that really fits what I'm trying to do. I have no problem beefing up the bullpen, but what's this guy's contract? $13 million. I feel like we could do better. I'm pretty comfortable rejecting this one. Yeah, no, thank you. That Cabrera trade, that's something. If you have a comment on that, please leave a comment, because I think that can be a really good place to kind of pick up the next stream. I'm kind of leaning towards doing it, but I feel dirty trading him to the White Sox, especially. A lot of re-signings. They don't really mean a whole lot. Yeah, it's pretty uneventful. Again, patience is part of the key. Yeah, nothing at all that day. No, one more. All right, White Sox, you still want him? Okay, now they want it. So they really want to trade us Zach Putnam. So again, it does seem like there's some opportunities there. I'm gonna cancel that for now, but I think that's really a. Oops, it didn't advance the day. I think that's going to be a really interesting point. So the Brewer, ooh, there we go. So George Springer was a guy I was looking at. Again, a top free agent, but just not a guy I just don't want to give up the first round pick for it. So the Brewers end up getting George Springer and Trevor Bauer. So that's actually a smart move. If you're going to lose the first round pick, suddenly signing another top free agent isn't as costly, right? Now you're just losing the second round pick. It's not as bad. I mean, it sucks that you don't have your first or second, but the Brewers, it looks like they're all in. Wow. So those are some big signings. But I made up my mind. I've thought about it plenty. I did not want to pursue those guys. Ooh, George Springer got $29 million a year. Is that right? Or is that the total contract? That's the total contract. Oh, so they got him pretty cheap. Hey, we got Julio Teheran. I'm glad they weren't even going to tell us. So we did sign Julio Teheran. Excellent. All right, well, I know it wasn't probably as exciting to the start of an off season, but we do have some things to think about. Again, we're considering a Miguel Cabrera trade, which I think is definitely worth thinking about here the next few days. Outside of that, again, the only pickup we have right now is Julio Teheran, who will step right into the rotation for us there. So I'm happy about that. We missed out on the closer, but again, principally I don't miss that too much. And we can start to reposition our lineup a little bit because we're going to have an extra spot to fill without getting DJ LeMahieu into the mix. But we have all our draft picks, and I think for a team like this, I mean, that's important. And we also have a lot of trade pieces. So that's where I'm going to leave off with this one. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to stream at some point Sunday, probably Sunday night or so. Maybe I'll do a live one that time. And I will... we'll just kind of go through this inning. We'll just do a week and see. The focus of that's probably going to be whether or not we trade Miguel Cabrera. I'll kind of give you a lay of the land of how the rest of the lineup's looking and things like that. But slowly but surely, we are working our way through the off season. So, guys, thanks for checking this out. If you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to the YouTube channel because we'll be doing a lot of different stuff with the PlayStation 5 coming out. It's an NBA 2K soon. I'm Mike Lowe on Twitter, as I mentioned, Mike Lowe 47 on Twitter. And yeah, I appreciate it. So if you do have comments or questions, let me know. Let me hear those. The sliders for the actual regular season, if you're interested, if you're still playing, is up on Operation Sports. I'm, of course, here just in the off season. We've already finished all 162 games, and those previous streams are all over YouTube. So if you want to see any of those games and how I play and whatnot, be sure to check those out. But otherwise, I appreciate you checking out the stream, and I will talk to you all Sunday night. See you then.